Earlier in the week, I posted about how difficult it can be in the moment to push student strategic thinking when they're answering the questions that we're posing because there's so much going on in the classroom. I also promised in those video posts that I would show you my AI coaching bot and how I'm working with teachers to pre plan how they're going to push students to think more strategically if they respond with surface level responses. So here you see my Have a Life teaching AI coach. And I put a prompt in. What are some typical fourth grade short info texts that students in the USA read? My bot will automatically give you a navigation bar before then it answers the question. So as you see here, it told me that some typical fourth grade short informational texts in science and nature often revolve around animal adaptations, ecosystems, weather, space. It gave me some typical text that fourth graders would read in social studies, biographies, STEM, health and safety. So what I did is I just took the science one and I said, okay, let's take science animal adaptations. What might be some typical surface level ways students might respond to these texts or text-based questions? And then what strategies teachers could be using to push the students further in their thinking and how to plan for this as teachers before the moment comes. Because again, in that moment, it's really hard to focus if we haven't given this issue some thought. So you see that my bot gave some typical surface level student responses. So students might listen without explaining. So if the question is, how does the Arctic fox survive in cold environments? It will say it has thick fur, but there's no explanation of how or why. Another way that, so you might want to push the students will tell me why. Copying a sentence from the text. This is really common that students do. The question is, what adaptation helps the camel survive in the desert? They might say camels have humps that store fat, but there's no really thinking beyond retrieval. Again, not really talking about how does that help or why is that an adaptation that works in the desert. They might name and not connect. So why is camouflage helpful to some animals? It helps them hide. But again, what's missing is that purpose. Helps them hide from what? For what reason? Or students might engage in simple fact thinking. The polar bear has white fur, so they might consistently repeat the same thing. But it ignores those other adaptations that animals have, such as fat layer, paws, hunting strategies. So again, how might teachers push student thinking? And how is my AI coaching bot helping me to do this? So strategy one is to force the function. So again, when the student just leaves it or has an answer at its very surface level, you could always, when they say, for example, it is thick fur, you could push the student. What does that adaptation do? And how does that help the animal survive specifically? So you're forcing the function. Strategy two, you could require evidence and reasoning in their response. For example, the teacher might follow up and say, you gave me the evidence, now explain the thinking. Tell me why or how this adaptation helps the animals survive. So perhaps you even give your student a sentence stem that they can use, which will help them to answer that question with more strategic thinking. A third strategy, compare within the same text. If the teacher says the polar bear has fur to keep it warm, you might say, which helps the polar bear more in the Arctic, the fur or its paws? Defend your answers. Strategy four, remove the obvious answer. So again, if multiple students are saying thick fur, you could say, yes, thick fur. You can't use that one anymore. What else helps it survive? So they have to go back into the text to find more evidence. And then strategy five, you don't need a new question. You just need a follow-up. So if the student says camouflage helps animals hide, you can ask these follow-up questions. Hide from what happens if they can't hide? Is camouflage more helpful for predators or prey? So what you really want to do as a teacher is use an AI bot to really help you think about how you're going to respond when students give you surface level responses. Not if, but when. And what can you do to remember to push the thinking of students in the moment? You could put one anchor question on the board. That's what AI here is suggesting. You could train yourself to silently ask so after every student answer. It has sharp clause. Out loud, you might not just want to say so, but you might want to say, so how do sharp clause help it survive? You want to look for the missing piece. In your head, you want to scan for those missing pieces, that they're not indicating the environmental connection. And if they're missing one, that's your cue to press. And you can build it right into the question design. So instead of saying, what adaptation does the animal have? You could say, how does blank help the animal survive? Why is this adaptation necessary in the environment? So you can build that into the question right from the start. A coaching shortcut, name it, explain it, connect. So a simple internal checklist you can use. Did the student name the adaptation? Did they explain how it works? Did they connect it to survival or environment? So again, this is specifically for an adaptation unit in fourth grade, but use an AI bot. If you know you're going to be teaching social studies content in fifth grade or seventh grade, and you know the specific lesson you're going to be teaching, how can you use an AI bot like my AI bot here, Have a Life Teaching AI Coach, to help you plan bespoke, targeted questions that get at student specificity? So now, if you are interested in learning more about how you can use an AI bot from me in planning effective lessons, my name is John Shabari from Have a Life Teaching. I help teachers teach and school leaders lead. So I do hope you reach out to me if you have a question about how AI can really help you efficiently teach better, faster, and more effectively.